justice protest. Now, Brittany Martin was convicted of breaching the peace, quote, in a high and aggravated manner for her words. Next week, the civil rights attorney, Bakari Shells, will request a sentencing reconsideration for Martin. Her attorney, Sybil Rosado, is joining me now from Columbia, South Carolina. I'm confused here, Sybil.
Well, good evening.
How the hell is she in prison for 4 years for her words?
Good evening. So am I. I am very confused. I thought I lived in America, but apparently we have a different activity going on here. We saw Miss Martin get convicted of breach of the peace, high and aggravated, which usually is reserved for someone who has actually committed some kind of violence, who has caused the death of someone. The last case, one of the more prominent cases, the person killed someone outside the stadium and caused thousands of people a 4-hour delay. They were charged with breach of peace, high and aggravated. Miss Martin did exactly what you see there. That is the worst thing she did. She hurt no one. She had no weapons. She pressed her chest tightly up against the bulletproof vest that the officers were wearing. The prosecution said she harassed them and made them have to get a curfew, and that was one of the reasons they had elevated the charge. But the issue is, there was a curfew because the entire world was on fire in 2020. Brittany Martin was simply one of the people who was protesting and concerned about racial justice. And unfortunately, the First Amendment don't apply here.
Now, was she the only person charged this way and sent to prison?
She is the person who has one of the highest charges. Some people were charged. What breach of peace is a ticket. It's a traffic ticket. You get 30 days, $500 fine. It's a speeding ticket level activity. You can get breach of the peace charge for cursing in public. You can get a breach of the peace charge for walking in the street, which she clearly did. She walked in the street while she was protesting. That's what the marchers do. However, what happened with her was that she was so aggravating, based on the testimony from the police officers who were so frightened of her, because this was not the only charge she had. They had also charged her with threatening the lives of police officers because she said, "I'm ready to die for the black. Are you ready to die for the blue? Them vests ain't gonna protect you." Now, they took that as a death threat to the police officers. So she had 5 charges of threatening the lives of police officers. Those charges, actually, we have a hung jury on. And at any point, the prosecutor could attempt to bring those charges again against her. They also charged her with inciting a riot. Now, the jury was clear on that, and she was exonerated. She did not incite a riot. So you have to ask yourself, if breach of the peace is high and aggravated, but it's not a riot, then how is it high and aggravated? We can't have it both ways. It's
wow, that's crazy.
It is, and they waited 9.
Justice in the South.
Justice in the South. They waited 9 months after her initial arrest. So they pulled her over initially for failure to stop from a blue light because she drove a few extra feet to get to the police station instead of stopping in the dark, as many of us probably would want to not do. So they gave her a blue light ticket and arrested her. That is one of the tickets that is still, well, they finally took care of it while she was in jail. But that ticket is what got her arrested. Then they hit her with the 5 charges in the riot. 9 months later, they brought the breach of the peace charge to the grand jury, and she only learned about it when we were approaching trial. They had sent the paperwork, but they sent one sheet of paper with that information on it that was not very clear. When you look at the paperwork, you see that was a tacked on charge afterwards. It was an afterthought. So if they were so terrified when it happened, why wouldn't they have charged her then? Why would it take 9 months to become terrified?
Questions from our panel. Avis, you're first.
Oh my goodness. I don't even know where to start with this one because it's so outrageous. I mean, I'll just start, I guess, by just saying that if you are that scared if you're that much of a coward, that words reduces you to this level of cowardice, you do not need to be a police officer, number one. Number two, I guess my question to you is, given all that has happened to her, do you believe that this is not about her at all? It seems like to me this really is about using her as an example to everyone else, to try to make a statement to suppress any sorts of protests that Black people do. I noticed that people can apparently go all throughout the damn, halls of Congress and they leave alive and nothing happens to them. But, do you think that really the issue is bigger than her? And if so, it's what really can we do not only to help her at this point, but to save the rights of people who want to protest injustice?
Right. And that's what I say all the time. People are like, oh, well, Brittany, she was boisterous. Well, that's not against the law. And this isn't about Brittany Martin. Brittany Martin is a political prisoner. Brittany Martin is an idea. The idea is that we were told that we all have a right to free speech. Brittany Martin exercised her right to free speech. She did not cause a riot. She did not cause a fray. She did not engage in any violence. She didn't carry a weapon. Nobody got hurt. But she went to jail for 4 years because she spoke. That is absolutely a political act and a message to all of the people who might be interested in protesting ever. And that's why I keep telling people, this is bigger than just Miss Martin. Because if you decide you want to protest abortion rights, abortion, pro-choice, etc., you go out and you protest. Depending on who's looking at you in South Carolina, you could get up to 10 years because he could have given her 10 years. Because the way the statute reads in South Carolina, when it's elevated to breach of the peace, high and aggravated, the judge gets carte blanche and he just gives you whatever he wants. It's not statutorily regulated. Usually it's 30 days, $500 when it's just regular breach of the peace. It's actually a statute. There's no mandate of how long you're supposed to get for breach of the peace, high and aggravated. There's no definition for it. So it's whatever somebody thinks is high and aggravated. And that was part of the problem with defending this. There are no elements to the crime, so I had to define it based on breach with a high and aggravated assault. And that is what I tried to show the jury, that when you have a high and aggravated assault, somebody has been hurt, some weapon has been used. But they would not let me discuss that because we were talking about breach of the peace. Wow. So yes, this is a political suppression.
Yeah, so this is, this story is a similar song that we've had to deal with the last several decades when it comes to members of the civil rights movement, right? This is an old tactic that they've made anew, so to speak. Yeah. Now, one of the things I want to talk about is concerned is she's pregnant. Is that right? And,
yes,
I've read that she's lost weight. She's had some complications. And then we could talk about how, society's trying to police Black bodies recently, and particularly the bodies of Black women. Yeah. And I know there's some steps your legal team is taking right now to get her out. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
The Honorable Bakari Sellers has joined our team, and he submitted a motion for reconsideration of the hearing. And so basically what he asked the judge was that, can you please change your mind about this? Because it was just your mind. Can you change it? And so that's what the motion that has gone forward does. If that is not successful, we'll be forced to go to an appeal, which could take years. When Miss Martin delivers, her child will go to foster care. She already has children who are struggling and being taken care of by her sister and have no income. Her family has lost their home. I mean, everything you could possibly think of that would classify it as a disaster has occurred in this situation. This is a political disaster. She's been stripped of her rights. Her body is being controlled. The prison system in South Carolina has a rule where you are not allowed to have locks. You can have twists or braids, but not locks. So since Miss Martin has locks, which is a part of her religious belief, they have locked her up in solitary repeatedly because she refuses to cut the locks. and they keep charging her with disobeying the orders of the staff and the officers in the jail and putting her in solitary confinement, which is a violation of her Eighth Amendment rights, because as a pregnant woman, she should not be locked up 24/7. These are all problems that are political. I mean, this is Nelson Mandela on steroids in some ways, but people are not hearing it because no one got killed yet. But if her baby dies, then perhaps, I mean, is that what has to happen? Does something awful have to happen for people to act? Because that's part of the problem. We become so reactionary. We're not proactive. And that doesn't work when you're trying to make sure this kind of stuff doesn't happen.
Folks, that is certainly just strange. We'll certainly keep us abreast of what happens in this case. And as we always say, that sign above the Supreme Court doesn't apply equal justice under law. We know that is simply not the case when it comes to black folks, especially in South Carolina.
Sir, thank you for having us.
All right. Thank you so very much. All right, folks. Got to go to a break in the second hour of Roland